All right.
Okay, now you're live and you're being recorded. Go ahead.
Okay, and I'll just go ahead and repeat. We're here for the Robert Nathaniel Dett Elementary School Annex and Renovations Project pre-bid and technical review meeting. Before we start, we should go over a few housekeeping items. Please keep yourselves muted unless asked to speak. If you can't come off of the mute for some reason, dial *6 to unmute yourself. We want to make sure that everyone changes their screen name to ensure that we know who you are. So your first name and your company initials. And then please also add your name to the chat. Also in similar fashion, first name, last name with your company name or initials. And then the Q&A session will occur at the end of the meetings. So we want to make sure that you either hold your questions to the end or feel free to use the chat. My name is Patricia Montenegro, and I am the contract officer for this project. We'll go ahead and introduce PBC staff, and then we'll move on to our client and eligible bidders, as well as the design team. James?
Good morning, everyone. James Borkman, PVC Procurement. I also have Minnie Keys and Miguel Fernandez from my team on. Thanks, Patty.
You're welcome. Ray?
Good morning, everyone. Ray Gitteroff, Chief Development Officer, PBC.
Cal Lejeune, Director of Planning and Design.
Good morning, Justin Cafferty, Design Manager with PBC.
Good morning, Patrice Dahl, Director of Compliance for PBC.
Good morning, Lisa Gitteroff, Director of Controls, PBC.
Okay, and either Ray or Cal, if you like to introduce the AOR team.
Sure, I believe, so Ku LLC is the architect of record for the project. Dan or Jonathan, are you on the line?
Yep, we're both here, as well as Naya.
Go ahead, if you could introduce the three of you.
Sure, I'm Dan Rappel. I'm a principal with Ku. We're the AOR for the project. I have Jonathan Skinner, who's project manager and project architect for the project, and Naya Ganama, who is one of the team members for Ku. And then we have, I think, we have a handful of our consultants and part of our design team. We have Kyle Frey from Millhouse, who is the structural engineer. Looks like we have Taylor Drinkwater from Terra, who is Terra's civil. Oh, and also we have Stephen Lakin from Terra as well, who's the architect. And let's see if we have anybody else on. I'm not sure if we have WSP yet, but our MEP FP engineer is WSP.
Yes, I'm here for WSP, and the rest of the team will be joining too. This is Esther.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, if your team members could put your company affiliations after your names, please. So Esther, please put in WSP after your name so we know which companies you are. Same thing for all the other design team members, so we can differentiate you from the rest of others. Thank you.
Okay. Garth Daly from EDI is on the call.
Thank you, Garth.
Kyle Boyd from Specialty Consulting is also on the call.
Thank you, Kyle. And I think that rounds out the consultant team. So as long as everyone remembers to put in their company affiliations after their name, that'd be great. I'll turn it back over to you, Pat.
Okay, very good. And Ray, I don't know if you wanted to introduce our clients. I'm not sure. I can't see the full list of participants. Are they joining us today?
Sure. Our partners from CPS are on the call. So if CPS or its PMO can introduce themselves.
Hey, everyone. Good morning. George Chavez, Senior Project Manager, CPS. And on our team, it's also Brian Zader, our Director of New Construction, and Hamza Zubi, Senior Project Manager.
Thank you, Jorge.
Okay. All right, we'll move forward with introducing our eligible bidders. So the PBC issued the solicitation, the invitation to our pre-qualified general contractors, Class A. So if you are in the room, I'm going to call out the company name, and I would ask that you please identify yourself, introduce who you are. I'll begin. Albury Construction Company. Barton Mallow. Berglund Construction. Blinderman Construction.
Yeah, Brent Spolster and Steve Colberg from Blinderman.
Thank you. Burling Builders.
Raj Shah, estimator from Burling.
Thank you. Clark Construction Group. Development Solutions. FH Passion.
Hi, Arek Wojcik, FH Passion Estimating.
Thank you. Friedler Construction. Henry Brothers. Hunt Construction Group or Construction Company. James McHugh. K.R. Miller.
Derek Taylor from K.R. Miller.
Thank you, Darren. Madison Construction. Old Vet. Path Construction.
Hi, I'm Zachary Gerskowitz from Path Construction, estimator.
Thank you. Power Construction. Power and Sons. Solid. Turner Construction. Tyler Lane. Ujama. Banner. W.E. O'Neill. Walsh.
Leonard Green, Walsh Construction, Senior Project Manager.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So we will continue here with the procurement details, the project overview, project location. The project's located at 2131 West Monroe Street in Chicago. The general scope of work is the construction of a one-story annex athletic facility linked to the existing three-story school building. The interior upgrades of the existing building will include accessibility improvements, including a new elevator, restrooms, finishes, mechanical and electrical and plumbing upgrades with associated site development work. The time of completion, we have a substantial completion for August 2nd, 2024. And then we have 2 milestones associated with the time of completion. So the first milestone is the masonry repairs, the new roof, new link, and adjacent bathrooms, targeted renovations for December 31st, 2023. And then the substantial completion date for August 2nd of 2023 for the new annex, the new elevator at the existing school, site improvements and associated work. And then milestone number 2, which is the interior renovations at existing school for August 11th, 2024, not to 20,024. Liquidated damages, we have $1,500 per day for each scheduled milestone and substantial completion date. The project management team will go over the phasing plan that will go into detail regarding this time of completion. The availability of documents and procurement details, as everyone should be familiar with now, details can be found on PBC's current opportunities page, and the link is available there. So book 1, addenda, sign-in sheets, videos, PowerPoints such as these will be uploaded to the PBC website current opportunities page. And then as always, we designate an online plan room, and the designated printer for this project is Crossroads Print and Technologies. So there you will also, or you should have already received a link to books 1, 2, and 3. If you're having any issues with the downloads or viewing or obtaining addendums, etc., please contact Christy Weber. The documents are also available with our assist agencies, and the list is provided in book 1. The technical review meeting will happen here shortly after this meeting at 11:30, provided we stay on time. There is no site visit currently scheduled for this project, but that notwithstanding, bidders are advised that they should become familiar with the project to ensure they understand the full scope of work. Requests for information should be directed to my attention as the sole point of contact. My email is available on this link as well. And the deadline is currently May 30th by 4:30 p.m. and that's subject to change via addendum. We currently have an addendum pending, which we anticipate issuing sometime next week. Please be on the lookout for any PBC alerts and emails from me as well, directly to the eligible bidders only. The bid due date and time is currently scheduled for June 8th at 11 a.m., also subject to change via addenda. That's why it's always important to look at our PBC alerts for any updates to the project. The virtual bid opening details, it will be streamed live on PBC's YouTube page. So the way that you will view the opening is via the YouTube page. The recording will be available on PBC's current opportunity page. Bid submission requirements, we strongly recommend that the bids be submitted electronically. So 1 complete copy of the bid document, original signatures, either blue ink or digital signature, include a copy of the 5% bid bond, and then the bid form and the award criteria figure. While it's included in your copy of your bid document, we also ask that it be submitted separately within the email. And that email should go to bids@pbcchicago.com, as well as my email, patricia.montenegro@cityofchicago.org. I want to just make a quick reference here to please ensure that you include the right ending here for both emails. It is .com for the bids and then .org for my email address. If submitting hard copy, we want to make sure that you adhere to the submission requirements for hard copy submissions within book 1, and that is to include 2 single-sided copies in a sealed envelope with original signatures, with an original bid bond, and then labeled with all of the contact information you find on this screen. And then that you mail or hand deliver to the Public Building Commission, Suite 200. PBC will begin receiving bids at 9:30 on June 8th. So we want to encourage those who are going to submit hard copy that they either messenger or hand deliver after the 9:30 mark. Again, we strongly recommend that electronic submission. All right, so the bid form in book 1, you should, if you have seen it already, looks similar to this, not broken up like this, of course. So this one that is on screen is for the hard copy submission, so someone would have to either type out or write in their base work only figure there, and then add up all of the numbers seen on the screen here. And then that number would, you would populate your total base bid on line 7. And then based on your award criteria figure formula, you would then determine what that number looks like and then put it in line 8. And please make sure that you fill out the surety and bidders information that's found below on the bid form. The electronic version, I just want to make a note, the electronic version already computes this on your own. So that's why we also strongly encourage that electronic submission. The basis of award is the award will be made to that lowest responsive bidder submitting the lowest award criteria figure and otherwise responsive to all other requirements of the contract documents. And firms are required to complete the entire bid form to be considered responsive. The pre-award meeting is currently scheduled for the day after bids open, so that is June 9th at 10 a.m. Again, subject to change via addenda. And then notice of award, we do anticipate issuing the notice of award after our June 2023 Board of Commissioners meeting. The successful general contractor will be required to submit, as usual, the certificate of insurance and payment and performance bond within 7 days of NOA issuance. Okay, so a few highlights for book 1 and book 2. The construction budget found on page 4 of book 1 is $28,500,000. Mandatory project staffing requirements are book 1, page 5. Scheduling software requirements, book 1, page 6. Liquidated damages, page 6 of book 1. And CPS project labor agreement can be found on book 1, page 12. Firms are strongly encouraged to participate in joint venture partnerships. And so if doing so, we want to make sure that you submit your joint venture affidavit and include a copy of your JV agreement. It does not have to be in final form, but we would like to see a draft of that agreement, and then ensure that you include your certification letter. Okay, and at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Patrice Doyle, who will go over the compliance portion.
Hello, everyone. So the award criteria figured the maximum that you can say the total hours work that will be performed by minority journey workers, minority apprentice, and minority labor is 70%. The maximum for female journey workers, female apprentice, female laborers are 15%. Just make sure you're taking a good look at the scope. You have identified what you can achieve on this project, because once awarded the project, whatever figure that you have calculated or put on the award criteria figures become contractual. So again, the maximum is 70% for minority journey apprentice and labor, and a maximum is 15% for female journey apprentice and labor. There's also a 7.5% community hiring, and the map is included in the bid documents of those community areas. And there's a 50% city residency, which means that 50% of the total hours worked on this project should be city residency, and 7.5 should be community hiring per those community areas on the map. Next, please. And this is the community area map for Dett Elementary School. This is the work criteria formula. Again, the maximum 70%, but you decide what goals you will be able to achieve as far as minority apprentice journey and labor, as well as female apprentice journey and labor. And once you identify the percentage and make sure if you're doing a hard copy of the calculations that you double check your numbers, and this will determine your total award criteria figure, which is the lowest bidder. It is not the lowest responsible bidder, but it will determine the lowest bidder. I believe if you're doing the form fill, it will calculate the information for you.
Yes, Patrice, before you move forward, I just wanted to definitely highlight that. So if you, again, like Patrice said, the electronic submission, it calculates it for you. But if you're doing the hard copy submission, you're going to refer to pages 19 and 20 of book 1, and then you're going to have to do the calculation on the side. So please ensure if you're doing hard copy, please ensure that that formula in your math is correct. Thank you.
Next, please.
Sure, sorry.
The goal for this project is 26% MBE, 6% WBE. We only accept certifications from City of Chicago and Cook County. And the information regarding the special conditions are in Book 2, Article 23 for M and WBE participation. Next, please. B2D now is our tracking system. It tracks the payments for compliance with MBE and WBE contractors. Established business, it depends on what stage of the established business is. If they're at their first year, they get 75% credit. And that means that it is a MBE or a WBE that's in the process of graduating from the program. So if it's their first year, they only receive 75% credit. Their second year is 50% credit. Their third year is 25% credit. Some MBEs and WBEs may not have a current letter, so I suggest you also check the website and verify the MBE and WBE is first certified, what they're certified in, and what amount of credit you can give them. Because some of the letters that they are submitting does not identify that they're established business, or you can ask them for a current certification letter if the one they has expired. Manufacturers receive 100% credit, suppliers receive 60% credit, and brokers receive 0% credit. So again, make sure the M or WBE is currently certified and that they are certified in the scope of work that you are trying to receive credit for. Also submit a Schedule D and a Schedule C. This is the Schedule D. So this is the credit amount. It may not always equal the contract amount. Again, for example, suppliers only receive 60% credit. So if they are 100,000 is their contract amount, only 60,000 would go on the Schedule D. If they're subbing out work to be performed, not supplies, just work to be performed to a non-M or WBE, say they're subbing out 10% and the contract value is 100,000, only 90,000 will appear on the Schedule D. So the Schedule D identifies the credit amount for each M and WBE in the scope that they're certified in. This is the Schedule C. This should be completed by the subcontractor. One thing to note, the from should be from the firm that's certified as the M or WBE. The to, it should be who they're contracted to. So example, tier 1, if they're a tier 1 to the GC, then the GC name will be here, but sometimes we have tier 2, so it may not be the GC, it's whoever they are a subcontractor to. Something to note on page 2, the highlighted sections, oftentimes the subcontractors forget to complete this information, or we find out later on that this information is incorrect. So if they are subbing out work to a non-M or WBE, the percentage should appear here. And if they're subbing out work to a MBE or WBE, we would need to know who they are, what work they're subbing to, and their certification letter. Not so much as another Schedule C, but just a letter identifying, hey, we are subbing out to ABC, they're MBE, they're doing 10% of the electrical work, and their contract value is $10,000. You still will receive credit for their participation, but we still need to know that information. You will not cannot receive credit for work being performed by a non-MBE or WBE subcontractor. Next, please. Okay, back to you, Patty.
Sure. Thank you, Patrice. And so this concludes the pre-bid section of this meeting. I just want to give a quick opportunity for any questions that anyone has for Patrice or I at this time. Okay. I remain as the sole point of contact for this project. So please, any questions that you have regarding book 1, book 2, book 3, or the drawings must be submitted to my attention at patricia.montenegro@cityofchicago.org. And at this time, I'll hand it over to the team.
Thank you for that. We will start then the technical review portion of the project. What I will do is sort of give you a quick overview of the project, and then I'll pass it on to Dan from COO, who will then take you to the specifics of the project. Well, the Dett Elementary School is just on the near west side, not too far from the United Center. PBC took over this project in September of last year. Did scoping till the end of the year, and then started designing in January for now to be in bid. It is an existing school that's been around since 1959, when it was built on what is now a campus with the Chicago Park District. They were doing a few of these where the park is integral to the site itself. But there is a physical, not to say not physical, but there is a boundary survey that is the CPS property different from the Park District. We have been coordinating with the Park District on this project, but however, you'll see from the phasing plan, there is a specific zone identified for the limits of the site as well as the limits of construction as well. The existing school has the classroom wing along with the kind of a one-story services area, and then we're all putting an annex next to it. We've been coordinating with the community, the Alderman Burnett Jr., who's in this ward, is very excited about the project. We've coordinated also this with the principal, who's excited as well about the addition. This is a school that will benefit greatly from the scope that's being done, both on the renovations of the inside of the existing school, as well as the new annex. It is bringing in this new athletic facility, because along with the relationship with the Park District, there is an existing outdoor basketball court that now is going to be part of this annex that will be a high school competition gym. So nothing is really going away on site. It's just going to be part of a shared relationship between the Park District and CPS. So it's a very exciting project, moving forward quite well. Lots of excitement. This school has a high percentage of diverse learners. So this kind of focus on the renovations of the existing school and the amenities are amazingly helpful in continuing that great work that both this principal and the prior principal has been working on. So with that, I'm going to pass it on over to Dan, who'll start with the site plan and walk you through the project before we get into the technical documents, which the disciplines then we'll talk about very high level key, what the discipline of scope of work is for this project. Dan, all yours.
Sure, thank you, Cal. So the project site is bordered on the north by Monroe Street and Levitt on the west. The existing building is shown in white and notated with number 1. The annex location is orange and annotated with a number 4. It's approximately 19,000 square feet. It is a 1-story building. Notably, it is on caissons. The soil in this area is poor. The existing building, the 3-story classroom wing, which is to the west, is also on caissons. And then there are spread footings typically on the 1-story existing portion. There's significant site work on this project. Currently, there is a parking lot on the northeast component, east portion of the site that will be consolidated with parking that already kind of exists in a more informal fashion on the southwest corner. And that will be consolidated in our plan along with a loading and trash enclosure area that is sort of all at that south portion of the site. Let's see what else from the site plan. I think that's about, I should just touch base a little bit on utilities. I'm not sure if we hit the phasing plans later, but there's fair amount of utility work. Oh, great. Nice timing. So in the upper left-hand drawing, you see kind of a diagrammatic portion of the utility work. There's extensive sanitary and stormwater work on the site. There's a new water service that will be located at the northeast corner of the site, and then will sort of be back tied into existing building systems through the annex and run through the building. Gas service remains. The existing electrical service remains, but I will note that the pole where the electrical service comes in, the current electrical service has to be moved to be coordinated with CDOT and ADA requirements. So that is just something to note. There is a new electrical service dedicated for the annex that comes in sort of on the northwest corner of the annex itself to a new electrical room. And then Cal, I'm not sure, do you want me to go through this phasing plan as well?
No, Ray's gonna take that through. I think there's
Great,
some other
okay.
aspects that he wants to do that, and then we'll turn it over back to you. Thank you, Dan.
So then what,
Ray? If you can hold on, Ray will go through the phasing plan, then that'll be a lot easier. And then we can turn it over back to you, Dan. Ray?
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Cal. Can you hear me okay, Cal?
Yep.
All right, great. And, you know, with our partners at CPS and COO and the school, along with PBC, we took a great deal of time to not just prepare what we believe is the appropriate phasing for the project that is consistent with the time of completion requirements that Patty Montenegro was showing as part of the slide presentation early on. But it is, we absolutely took a hard, long look at, you know, what is realistic within each milestone, as Patty indicated and as Dan alluded to earlier. There are 2 milestones and 1 substantial completion date. Just as a note, and Dan will provide an update shortly with regard to the permits, when the permits were uploaded, when we should anticipate permit approval. And that's indicated on this drawing as well, in that we're advising the bidders to assume building permit issuance by July 31st. There are constrained dates indicated in each milestone. For example, milestone number 1, which includes the masonry repairs, targeted renovations as shown by those contract limits that are highlighted, to start no sooner than July 31st and to be completed by the end of this year, December 31st of 2023. It's important that everyone take a hard look at this and understand the phasing and those constraints from a time of completion requirements, because each is a little bit different. For example, as it relates to the substantial completion for the new annex, and Dan mentioned this work does include caissons, and we'll talk about that in a minute in terms of the bidder's responsibilities or the contractor's responsibilities for permit approval regarding caisson procedures and when that information is required so that we can maintain project schedule. The same constraint applies to the substantial completion portion of the work, which includes obviously that new annex, the roofing work, the elevator, and so on and so forth. to start no sooner than July 31st, to be completed by next August 2nd, 2024. That's the difference in that completion date constraint between milestone 1 and milestone 2. I'm sorry, milestone 1 and the substantial completion date, whereas the start no sooner than date is the same, and that's based on permit issuance for the project. Separately, there is a significant amount of renovation work required at the existing school. That work may not start sooner than June 17, 2024, unless otherwise directed, which is the end of the school year next year, to be completed by August 11, 2024. We've confirmed with our partners at CPS that there is no summer school planned during summer 2. It's also important to note that we recognize and acknowledge that it is a significant amount of renovation work. However, what we will expect and what we will implement is very specific schedule reviews and tracking of the work, whereas the bidder, the contractor, will be responsible for all of the submittals, material procurement, mitigation of any supply chain issues, so that on June 17th, everything that we need is available to us, that we can get into the school, perform the work, and be complete by August 11th, based on the published construction budget that was issued to the bidders and in accordance with our own internal control estimate, construction cost estimate, based on the 100% CDs issued for bid documents. We feel that the amount of labor required to perform that work within this time frame is realistic and sufficient. So going back now to those notes to the far right of the screen, I believe everyone can see the screen, whereas the permit numbers are listed. Dan will provide shortly status on those permit reviews, but more importantly, those requirements within 2 weeks of contract award are important. Everyone on the phone, all 7 GCs that I counted that are on this phone call with us, that we've had great experience with in the past, understand and know that the permit will not be issued until such time the general contractor provides all of that information that's listed 1 through 8 on the far right side of this drawing. A lot of this information is required for the standard building permit, of course, but there is a separate caisson permit. And in that regard, it's important to note that we are requesting or directing the bidder or contractor to provide the caisson procedures in addition to all the other information listed from items number 1 through 7 within 2 weeks of contract award. There is no limitation, there is no constraint, there is no requirement for the bidders to identify any subcontractors as part of their bid when they submit on bid day. We removed any constraint related to that so that it is a lot more flexible to our bidders to understand the scope of work, which Dan and the team are going to review shortly, understand these requirements listed for those responsibilities by the bidder in order for us to obtain the permit. I can tell you that COO has done an exceptional job, along with the rest of our team, in coordinating with our partners at CPS, the school, all the stakeholders, and the Department of Buildings relative to all the requirements to have the permit ready for approval. So Cal, that's all I have to say about the phasing plan. We have a high level of confidence in the level of completeness of the contract documents that Dan and his team are going to review shortly, along with the time of completion requirements noted in the contract documents, specifically in this presentation early on, along with the instructions to the bidders that went out as part of the issue for bid documents. So on that note, Dan, I'll turn it back over to you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Ray. So this is a view of the proposed annex. It's approximately 19,000 square feet. Please note that we are targeting LEED silver for the annex portion. It includes kind of going from east to west, a gymnasium, which is sized for high school competition, though this is for an elementary school, and then a community room and lobby pre-function area. There's sort of 2 entries to the school, one from the north and one from the park to the south, as this is supposed to be a dual use facility. And then there is a large bathroom in this wing that is an all gender restroom. So that is a bit unusual and part of the new allowable all gender restroom ordinance. And then the link to the existing school is south of the existing gymnasium, and then ties in where you see sort of boys and girls on the left side of the screen. As far as I can just quickly touch on permit, the permit is following the developer services, the standard developer services process. We are already underway for the OUC portion of that. It is a split permit for caissons only, and then a full building permit. We anticipate issuing for the full building permit very soon. Cal, any other words on the permit that we need to cover?
No, it's in process with the goal of July 31st in order to obtain both of those permits. So it's in progress.
Okay, next slide. The building is pretty standard CPS construction, steel structure. Caissons are a different part of that, and we'll get into that when we get into the technical drawings. Light gauge metal framing with a brick veneer, some areas of aluminum window wall and glass, and there are packaged units on the roof that serve both the new annex and the existing gym. Next slide. This is a view from the north, by the way, that you're seeing currently. Next slide, please. This is a view from the south. You see the gym volume kind of in the foreground, and then the entrance in the middle ground, and the existing building in the background. Next. Another view of the entrance. There's a learning garden on the south side. So there's a mixture of planting materials. Landscape plan shows this, and pavers and concrete sidewalk. This is a view inside the gymnasium. As I mentioned before, it is a high school size court. It has the standard sort of CPS requirements for basketball goals, volleyball inserts, and is striped for those sports as well as pickleball. There is a gym divider curtain, and there are manual bleachers within the space. There's your beautiful divider curtain. The balance of the building, one thing that's sort of unique for a CPS project, much of the flooring in here is epoxy terrazzo. That's one sort of notable divergence from typical CPS standards. The remainder of the construction is pretty in line with CPS standards, including solid surface wall paneling. There is some limited chipboard ceilings. The corridors are open to above. Within the community room, there is a ACT drop ceiling, but the epoxy terrazzo continues into that space. This is another view of sort of the lobby entry and pre-function area. And there is some trophy cases and millwork in that area. This is a view within the community room. And another view. Here is the all-gender bathroom. So the epoxy terrazzo goes into this location, and then almost all of the, basically all the wall paneling, with the exception of the partitions, is solid surface in this case, a couple of different kinds of solid surface, and there are trough sinks in this location. The partitions are specific for to meet the all-gender portion of the code. So you will note that these are custom heights, and the doors are about 4 inches from the floor. So these are not your standard toilet partitions. This is a view of the work in the existing building, and generally I would say there's a lot of renovation work in the building. There are finishes, there are new lockers in the corridors, as you're seeing. There are a handful of classrooms, perhaps 5 or 6 classrooms that are receiving programmatic upgrades and have like pretty full-throated renovations of them. These include a science and maker space. There's an art room. There's a sort of dance room, music room, a sensory room. Cal had mentioned that the school hosts a large percentage of diverse learners. So that is kind of a unique programmatic element. There are bathroom renovations throughout this existing building. There are some building system upgrades, including a new intercom system. There will be changes to the fire alarm system to support the new annex. There is some security upgrades. There is some upgrades to the plumbing and piping, which in some cases is galvanized pipe. And then there are some, there's a new unit that supports air conditioning and ventilation at the lunchroom space. Next slide. This is a view of the science and makerspace, fairly similar to, for those of you who are experienced with CPS programmatic changes. These are part of the standards.
I believe that's the last slide. So Dan, if you could take us through the technical drawings, I presume you have sharing capabilities, and then we'll go by discipline and a very high key level description from each of your team members. And maybe we can start with the site environmental with the PBC's consultant, SPC, to talk about the general site conditions, and then we can move into civil and structural and so on.
Great. Jonathan, can you share the drawing set?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't we start then with Kyle. Kyle, can you run us through the hazmat for the interiors of the project, and then we can go into the site.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so as they mentioned previously, there is quite a bit of interior renovations on this project. I would break it down saying there is the environmental aspect will be about 80% floor tile. That there is significant 9x9 throughout the existing building that'll be replaced. The remaining percentage would be about 15% for the pipe insulation, and that's included in the chases and the areas that'll be renovated around the toilets and upgrading the drinking fountains. The remaining 5% would be miscellaneous sealants and also window glazings that were observed. As far as lead-based paint, it is very, very minimal on this project. The lead-based paint is confined to only the lintels of the doors and the windows. There is no other identified lead-based paint on this project. And those are the only identified environmental concerns. We did provide drawings that include containment drawings. And on those drawings, you'll see how we kind of used our best experience on means and methods. So you'll see that we have you kind of taking over each floor as you go through, and it'll be under full containment because as you can see, there is a significant amount of flooring throughout each classroom. That's all 9x9 that'll be removed. Most of these classrooms, I would say about 95% are single layer 9x9. There is a couple areas to note. The multi-purpose room or library is 2 layers of flooring. The reception and the office area is 2 layers of flooring, and the music room is 2 layers of flooring. As far as the other areas, everything is single layer and it's on concrete. And that's kind of all I have for the internal hazardous environmental.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Garth, on the site environmental from EDI. Again, these are high level, quick review conditions.
Okay. Effectively, all soils that get excavated as part of the site development should be treated as subtitle D soils. We did testing to various elevations, and based on the numbers, that's where they're, well, that's what it is. And I guess that's it in a nutshell. If we need to get into more specifics, we can do so in the Q&A session.
Okay, great. Probably should also mention that the site will be enrolled in the SRP program So that's a component that will be ongoing as part of the process. All right, great, thank you. So Jonathan, Dan, will run through by discipline.
Yep. So Taylor and Stephen, if you could briefly introduce the civil and landscape work.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, a little low, but yes.
Yeah, sorry, I have trouble with Zoom, so I'll just be loud here. So yeah, this is the demolition plan. So looking at this, the total site area is about 64,000 square feet. Almost the entirety of the site to the south and the east of the existing school will be demolished for the new annex in the parking lot. There are some items that will need to be salvaged and stored, and some relocated as well. So those will be on the plans. And if you want to flip to the next page. So here's our site plan. The site plan will include a parking lot with 37 spaces and 2 accessible parking spaces. The lot will connect to both the south side of the existing school and the annex piece via sidewalks throughout the site. Portions of the right-of-way curbing and sidewalk will be replaced as required to meet CDOT and accessibility requirements. There's a trash enclosure on the east end of the parking lot. And then to the east of that, there's a learning garden that will have planters and paver areas, benches, things like that. For the plantings throughout the site, Steve will be able to talk about that a little bit more with the landscape plan. And if you want to flip to C3-00. So here's the grading and just kind of a general overview with the somewhat limited width of the site, kind of going north-south. The proposed grades will generally be close to existing. There's only about a 6-inch grade change from the north side of the property to the south. And if you want to flip to C4-00. And then a quick summary of the utility plan. So as Dan had mentioned before, a new water service will serve the existing school and the annex at the northeast corner of the site. That's in compliance with the DWM codes. And then looking at stormwater, stormwater is currently proposed to be managed through a precast concrete detention vault and oversized pipes. We have also incorporated some bioinfiltration and permeable paver areas closer to that learning garden area. And then the existing school also has a combined sewer kind of at the center part of that existing school, and that will remain. And then a new combined sewer service connection will serve the stormwater from the new development and the sanitary from the annex portion of the school. And that will connect to South Levitt Street in the southwest corner of the site. So yeah, that's about it for civil. If landscape would like to go through their plans now.
You may be on mute, Steve.
All right, we'll keep going,
let's
or
move
unless
on.
you can give a,
Oh, is that better? Can you hear me now?
Yes, got
There
you.
we go. I had to give it permission. I thought I had it. Anyway, okay, sorry about that. So for the L00, the preservation plan, the only thing just to keep in mind about this is that we don't anticipate any tree trimming, but if there is, just make sure that you get a permit through the Bureau of Forestry, because they don't like that. So for the overall landscape plan, most L0s are L1.0. Most of the parkways trees are just code required, so there's nothing specific about that. One thing to keep in mind, where new sidewalk occurs in the right of way and there's a new tree, we do have to do the structural soil. So just please be aware of that, because that's a more costly item, just something to make sure to pick up. The balance of it is foundation plantings, and as Taylor had mentioned, in the garden, learning garden area, we have raised planters, permeable pavers, and then a mix of trees, perennials, and shrubs. Let's see. We are redoing, just one thing to keep in mind too, so we have some fence to be redone near the parking lot. and then a new gas enclosure. It's a customized gas enclosure. So what's existing there right now is chain link fence. We're just going to do, if you go down just a little bit in that drawing, we're going to try to match the style of the, go down just a little bit more, Jonathan. Yep, there we go. We're just going to try to match the style generally of the ornamental fence with that poly coated, what's the word I'm looking for? The powder coat on the panels. General details, nothing shocking there on the L 2.0. And then if you go to the final sheet, one more down, that's fence details. Yep. All right. So here, just customized planters. These are precast planters. So we details are all shown. So nothing too significant there. The profile there is just the coordination between us and civil for pile retention areas. So the drawings talk to each other. So we kind of point back and forth between the two disciplines.
All right, great. Next discipline, Dan?
Kyle, can you give introduction to the structural elements?
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so the new annex will be structurally independent of the existing building. Dan, you mentioned most of this previously, but I'll just keep going through. The new annex will be a steel superstructure. There will be custom roof trusses in the gym comprised of W sections, so a bit atypical. Wide flange beams and prefabricated joists will be in the remaining areas of the annex, and metal roof deck, acoustical roof deck will be throughout the annex and the new gym. The superstructure will be bearing on caisson, concrete caisson foundations and exterior walls supported by grade beams. Around the perimeter of the new annex, there will be structural steel support for architectural elements. On the roof of both the new annex and the existing service wing, there will be mechanical enclosures concealing those new rooftop units. And in the existing classroom wing, there will be a new hoistway and pit slab bearing on new grade beams connecting to existing caissons.
All right, great, thank you. Are we pumping architecture next?
Yeah, and I think, I gave a pretty good summary of the annex building. So let's kind of just go and do an overview again. Let's see if I missed anything in the existing building. A couple things to note in the new, in the existing gym space, there will be a stage lift that will be created to the right, east of the stage. So that is a fairly decent sized component of work that we have not mentioned. I think we've talked about that there is renovation of the mechanical system for that gym, which Esther will touch on later. The unit itself is located on the annex, but then routes into the existing space. There is a fair bit of work in the corridors throughout, including new flooring and a fair amount of new lighting and ceiling. The entire area where the link enters the building has been reconfigured to create 2 bathrooms plus a service corridor that allows the building occupants to get the trash out to the enclosure and get deliveries in at the loading area. Next slide. Yep, that's sort of the reconfiguration of that space. As we've already discussed, there's a fair amount of classrooms that are touched and have sort of programmatic upgrades. And then there's a lot of finish work throughout. Why don't we take a look quickly at the elevator location? This area of the building, let's go to the actual new work plan instead of the demo plan. This area will see pretty comprehensive changes, especially on the second floor where the elevator machine room is. As Kyle briefly touched on, the structure for this elevator pit is to be supported on existing caissons with new grade beams and a new pit slab. So please take a look at that. The bathrooms are pretty much entirely renovated throughout to be accessible. There's new layouts, there's new finishes. So those spaces are almost entirely new. There's an office suite that gets renovated on the first floor adjacent to that space. And then let's go up to the next floor. I don't think there's anything really different here than what we talked about. Jonathan's cursor is near the elevator machine room, which is sort of takes the existing library space, and this is being converted to a multi-purpose room. And then there's sort of a separate corridor space and storage space created to access the elevator machine room. Miss anything? Oh, you know, one thing that we should talk about is the building envelope work on the existing building. There are most of the roofs get re-roofed. There's one roof that was re-roofed last summer that is not really touched, though. That is the location of new equipment, so there will be at least patching in that area. There is tuck pointing throughout the sort of one-story section of the building, and then there are some masonry, some areas of cracking that require masonry rebuild sort of throughout. But in the three-story classroom wing, there's sort of a light touch in terms of masonry work. There is some work for the grills associated with the existing unit vents.
Yeah. So I want to be conscious of time, Dan. You know, this session finishes at 12:30, so I want to allow at least 15 minutes for questions from the contractors. So if we can run through, you know, the MEP scope and give us that 15 minutes at the end, that'd be great.
All right, Esther, you're up.
All right. Yeah, mechanically, we have 4 total rooftop units that are being added. 2 of them do serve the annex. One has an energy recovery wheel, and that will serve the new gym. The other one is just a regular VAV system that serves the lower part of the annex. We also do have another new rooftop unit over this lower annex roof that serves the existing gym. Its configuration is similar to the one serving the new gym, and it also has energy recovery. Yes, and then moving on to this service wing, we are replacing the doors system that was previously in the boiler room, and that is now providing ventilation air that is both cooled and heated to all of the spaces in this area. We're also adding a new VRF system that will provide cooling and supplementary heating to the lunchroom. The rest of it is mostly to stay as is, but from the the restrooms. And then for the existing classroom.
Esther, can you speak a little louder, please? You're coming in super faint.
I'm sorry.
Not right now.
Is that better?
We need the big presentation voice.
Can you hear me any louder?
Slightly, but go for it.
All right, sorry about that. And then in the existing classroom, it's mostly touch-ups here and there, like in the bathrooms to replace the existing system. There is a little bit of cleanup in the multipurpose / library room, and then also adding a new local exhaust in the new science / makerspace, and adjusting the airflows there. I think, that is the gist of.
And there's a little bit of rework on the roof. There's rooftop ductwork and rooftop units, and that needs to be accommodated for the elevator location. So there's some work to that work, to the RTU supporting ductwork on the roof.
Yep.
All right, great. Thank you, Esther. Carla, you next? Who's next? Electrical?
Probably Jeff, yeah.
Jeff, there you go.
Can you give a very brief overview?
I sure can. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so electrically, the existing electrical service for the existing space is a 3000 amp 120 volt 208 volt service. Emergency power comes from an outdoor natural gas generator. There is no work being done to this generator. For the existing school in the classroom wings, there are upgrades done to select hallway power panels and lighting modifications that include relamping and new lighting. There are device upgrades to include a new intercom system, security intrusion, additions, and life safety devices for areas of rework. select classrooms will receive upgrades from interactive teaching wall upgrades to minor device additions where there is rework of interior rooms. Additions to the exterior will include parking lighting and electric vehicle charging stations. And of course, the new elevator that we discussed before will service all 3 floors. The new annex
And just
will
a
have,
quick
please.
thing, the charging stations aren't installed, it's just the infrastructure for them.
That is correct. So the new annex will have its own electrical and IDF room that will be served by a 1600 amp 12208 volt service for mechanical, lighting, and power. There will be no generator for this type of facility. Emergency lighting, AV devices will be provided throughout the new spaces. A new fire pump room will be served off the utility ahead of the main service. There will be lighting control for general areas and local control for interior spaces that include occupancy and vacancy sensors, perimeter spaces that will have daylight harvesting sensors. The gymnasium mentioned earlier will have the ability to control lighting, retract basketball hoops, activate shading for the clear story, and partition controls, as well as presentation capabilities.
Jeff, should we pass to Carl? I think I saw Carl was on to talk about the PV system.
Hey Dan, yep, thanks. So I'm Carl. I did the PV design with WSP. So this is a 108 kilowatt system, DC system size. We have 4 CPS inverters. Each of them are at 25 kilowatts, and it's being interconnected to the 2000 amp switch gear.
This is, of course, a new scope for CPS, certainly in the last 10 plus years, to have PV panels. So we're excited about having that on the project.
Yeah, that's good too, Carl.
Yep. All right, next discipline.
So Esther, is Ron on? I mean, we talked fairly extensively about the plumbing, but he may have some additional thoughts.
Suba is here and she can
Great.
add to what's, yeah.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. We are changing the existing piping to galvanized and FA is limited newly to the annex building, and the plumbing room has been relocated to the annex side, and we are changing all the domestic water and water meter to the gymnasium side, and all the domestic water coming from that side, and all the hot water has been changed as to boost the recirculation pipe to boost the efficiency and everything. And I guess and yes, we have changed a few of the existing BTR, and those were blocked up in the roof, and
Yeah, it seems like there's a little trouble hearing you. There are some changes on the roof for VTRs that are plugged, etc. So there's some rework associated with the re-roof in the plumbing system.
Right.
Okay, great. Thank you, Suba. Any other disciplines for conversations?
Jonathan, anything we need to?
The annex will be fully sprinkled.
All right. So thank you for running through that. That effectively, I think, concludes our technical portion of the documentation. Please take a look. Obviously, you'll have an opportunity to submit official RFIs through the process, but I'm going to turn it back to you, Patty, for any questions you want to entertain in this presentation. You are muted, Patty, or James. or-
Yes, sorry, I was looking for the unmute. Thank you, Cal. I do appreciate that in your team's presentation. Yes, as Cal mentioned, we want to give an opportunity to everyone or anyone who would like to ask a question with regards to the tech specs. So. Do we have Zachary here from?
Yes. Yeah, I did have a question regarding the photovoltaic. Is that something that we just provide the infrastructure for, or do we also need to provide and install the panels themselves?
It's inclusive. It's panels and infrastructure. And in fact, it's ultimately it's a delegated design, depending on the panel manufacturer that you go with.
Whole system.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? We've done so great of a job. There are no questions, Patty.
Oh, they'll come in the RFI process. All right, so I have just a few points before we culminate the meeting. I just want to give an opportunity to any pre-qual who joined us after introductions. I'll call out the names of the PBC pre-qualified general contractors that did announce themselves at the beginning. That was Blinderman, Path Construction, George Solid, Burling Builders, FH Passion, and Walsh. Are there any others who joined after intro?
A.R. Miller's here as well.
Oh, sure are. Sorry. Thank you. All right. And are there any MBE, WBE firms joining us this morning or now afternoon? Subcontractors? Okay. All right, very good. So just a reminder, all RFIs come in to my attention at patricia.montenegro@cityofchicago.org. As mentioned, we have an addendum pending for issuance next week. For those who have submitted RFIs, please be patient as we review the questions, as we cross-reference against the items that are currently up for issuance. And then also just make sure that we just hang tight as we continue to look through all RFIs and then answer them, because sometimes it may be answered in that first addendum that goes out, and then other times, you might see it in addendum number 2, depending on the complexity of the question. To the PBC, AOR, and CPS team, please stay on afterwards. And then with that, I just would like to thank everyone for joining us today. And this video and the PowerPoint will be available on PBC's current